The next topic we're going to talk about is safety. And safety is a big deal in healthcare because a lot of medical centers are the size of small towns. You look at the number of people that come and go from a major medical center in a day, and it's huge. You have potentially 400 or 500 patients that are just inpatients. You have hundreds more coming for outpatient procedures and testing, x-rays. You have all the employees from all the different shifts, including the facilities people, security, volunteers, regular employees, nursing staff, doctors that come and go, visitors that come to visit all the patients. So it's a tremendous amount of people that come and go. So it's very important that we maintain a very safe environment. The number one safety problem in healthcare is slips and falls, which we'll talk about next. Well, a little bit later. But what I want to start with is fire, because fire is really frightening. Fire can occur in a healthcare facility pretty easy. We have a lot of flammable materials. We have a lot of chemicals, meaning chemicals to clean things, chemicals that are drugs, chemotherapy, any kind of drug. We also have oxygen. Oxygen is highly flammable. We have lots of electrical equipment, and all that, and not all the electrical equipment is at 120 volts. Some of it is 220 volts. So we have electrical hazards. We also have cautery. Cautery is a little instrument that they use in surgery or sometimes in the ER when something's bleeding. They can take the cautery and go on the vessel and make it stop bleeding. It closes it off. So cautery is also very flammable. Sorry, my husband is out in front and he is shoveling the snow off the bush and it scared the heck out of me. So anyway, lots of things can cause fires in hospitals. So what I'm going to do is go through the two important acronyms for fire, safety, and rescue, things that you must know. And I use these all the time. These are applicable in a school, anywhere that you may be where there's a fire, and even in your home. So I'm going to try to turn this board so that you can see this. Oh shoot, it's going to make it backwards. I don't know how to make it. I don't know how to. Because I'm videoing and it's making it backwards. Well, I'll do the best I can here. And R, so the acronym is RACE. And R stands for rescue. Rescue means rescue the patients. Get everybody out of the way that you can. Next is A for alarm. C is contain. I'll write it, but this is not helpful. I don't know how to fix it. And extinguish for E. So I will go through these but not use the whiteboard because I don't know how to make it not backwards. And I don't know how to write backwards. I have a lot of skills, but that's not one of them. Sorry. I thought this would work, but it's not. Look at how pretty that snow is. And it's still coming down. Yay, look at that. Gorgeous, isn't it? Nice. Okay, back to work. So, rescue. So, the acronym is RACE: rescue, alarm, contain, extinguish. So, remember RACE, and then you will know when there's a fire to race. First, rescue is get anybody that is in imminent danger out of the way. What does rescue mean? Rescue means that I can move you out of the fire area. Rescue means I might have you walk out of the facility. If you are in a wheelchair, I'm going to have somebody move you at least 2 fire doors from the fire. And if you're in a stretcher, we will either move you in, if you're in a bed, we'll move you on a stretcher, or we'll move you in the bed, depending on your condition. And again, we're going to move you to fire doors. Now, in the event of a fire, you can use patients who are relatively healthy to help you rescue. Meaning, if there's a big fire and somebody had knee surgery and they're doing okay and they were going to go home, they might be able to push a wheelchair for you to get somebody out. Evacuations or rescuing from a hospital can either mean go up 2 floors, down 2 floors, or 2 fire doors between you and the fire. So some facilities have really long hallways. If you get 2 fire doors from the fire, then you are considered safe for the time being. Elevators cannot be used in rescues. That's because the elevator will go to the floor of the fire and open it up because it's heat censored. And then the fire will go right into the elevator, killing everyone in the elevator or seriously injuring them. So no elevators, you got to use stairs. So rescuing might just be closing the doors in the hallways. On the college, we're not allowed to prop doors because all the doors are fire doors. In hospitals, in facilities, you cannot prop fire doors. Make sure that your fire doors don't have equipment in front of them. If that fire door that's steel comes slamming closed and there's something in front of it, that's going to go flying. Also, if there's a stretcher in front of it, the stretcher might get lodged in between the 2 fire doors and it not close. If it doesn't close, it's not protecting us. So make sure your hallways are clear at all times. Not just sometimes, they need to be clear of everything. So rescue. Get anyone who's in imminent danger out of the way. The next thing is alarm. Pull the alarm. Pull the fire alarm. Don't you want 911 to come? Don't you want other people to know there's a fire? You've got to pull that fire alarm. If you can't, yell for somebody else to pull the fire alarm. That being said, you need to know where the fire alarms are where you work. Look around. If you're starting, when you go to your clinical sites, know where those fire alarms are. You don't want to be in a fire and looking for a fire alarm. It's not a good idea. So alarm, pull that alarm, get 911 on their way. The faster they're there, the faster things are going to get under control. Next is contain, and contain is kind of a part of rescue, but containing means getting the fire doors closed or non-fire doors closed. That keeping that fire in one place. If that one place is in a room, make sure the door's closed. Don't let it get into the hallway. So contain it as much as possible. Next is extinguish. Extinguish. Now your book says evacuate. If you haven't evacuated the area, during rescue, now is a time that you would evacuate. If you know how to, you can extinguish. And I'm going to tell you how to extinguish a fire now with a fire extinguisher. So remember, rescue, alarm, contain, extinguish. Rescue anyone in imminent danger, pull that alarm, contain the fire by closing doors, and extinguish it if you can. If you can't, then you need to evacuate that area. So the next topic I'm going to talk about is extinguishing a fire. Number one, to extinguish a fire, it's got to be manageable. If a whole room is engulfed, don't attempt. Get out of there. Get everyone out. You're not going to be able to manage it with a fire extinguisher or even a fire hose because we don't know how to use them. Fire extinguisher, I'm going to teach you in a minute. So, if it's a trash can, I can manage a trash can. Absolutely, I can manage a trash can. So, what you want to do is, when you take your fire extinguisher, you want to pass. PASS is the acronym. Like RACE is the acronym for the fire. PASS is the acronym for the fire extinguisher. So PASS, P-A-S-S. P stands for pull the pin. Fire extinguishers have a pin in them. And if you don't know about fire extinguishers, ask me when class resumes because we have a fire extinguisher right in our class and I can show you the pin. So pull the pin. Next is A. You're going to aim at the base of the fire. You don't want to aim everywhere. You want to aim at the base of the fire. So if here's my fire, it looks like a crown. I'm going to aim down here. I'm not going to aim up there. No. You're going to aim here. Get the base of the fire extinguished, and then this will go out. So aim. Next is squeeze. You got to squeeze the fire extinguisher. Squeeze it hard. So aim it, squeeze it, and then you want to sweep. And what sweeping means is I'm not just going to aim my fire extinguisher right here. I'm going to sweep back and forth at the bottom of that fire. Slowly sweep back and forth. Because if I just aim here, that's the only area I'm going to get out. But I want to get this whole thing. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So again, for pass is pull the pin, aim, squeeze, sweep. Fires are scary in healthcare facilities, and you need to be aware that with all the equipment, all the chemicals, there are lots of hazards. So when we talk about hazards, oxygen being one, any patient who has oxygen, number one, cannot smoke. No smoking for patients. It is federal law. You cannot smoke inside facilities. That being said, there are patients who will go outside and smoke. They cannot go outside with oxygen and smoke. Oxygen is incredibly flammable. Other thing that we think about less with oxygen is that oxygen is highly flammable, like I said, but things can cause oxygen to ignite. One of those is a wool blanket. If ever you've gone like this with a wool blanket, when the air is dry, it goes and you see those little sparks. That's static electricity. Static electricity can ignite oxygen. So no static electricity, meaning no wool blankets. Patients are not allowed to have wool blankets. They can only have acrylic. Nail polish remover, none. Can't have it with oxygen. Petroleum jelly. Little old ladies put this Vaseline on their lips and under their nose when they have oxygen. Oxygen's very drying. They like to put that there. They also put it on their lips. You don't want petroleum or Vaseline on the nose and lips. Vaseline is petroleum. Petroleum is oil. Oil is flammable. So none of that. No nail polish remover, no wool blankets. So just make sure you're checking. Of course, no matches, no candles, no cigarettes. Absolutely not. No cigarettes. Those are all hazards for someone who has oxygen. Other hazards that facilities have: radiation spills. So people that work in the radiology department, they all wear a little counter on them, gets turned in and scanned on a regular basis, and they see how much radiation they've been exposed to. Radiation exposure is based on time and distance. What does that mean? The more time I am exposed and the closer I am to it, the more radiation I get. So, that being said, sun gives radiation, right? If I'm in the tropics, I have a greater exposure risk than if I'm in Seattle today where it's snowing and I'm not even outside. So, when there's a radiation emergency in the hospital, they'll seal off the room. What you want to do is immediately get out of that area. So, the longer you're in there and the closer you are to the spill, the more radiation you're going to get. A great example of radiation exposure is Chernobyl. Some of you probably don't know what it is, but Chernobyl was a nuclear radiation plant that exploded in the Soviet Union. And there's a city near there, or town, called Chernobyl. And out of that disaster, many, many people had all kinds of problems that developed. That's because they couldn't get out of the town because they were poor and they had nowhere to go. So they stayed. Well, the animals that they ate all had radiation exposure. The water had radiation exposure. The ground where they grew vegetables, the fruit on the trees, all had radiation exposure. So these people were exposed over long periods of time to lots of radiation. And what happened was you had a large population in that town that had birth defects, miscarriages, and lots of cancers. So, stay away from an area if it's roped off for radiation. Don't go in there. They can check it with a Geiger counter. They'll check it all the time. If there's a spill, get out of the area as quickly as possible. Time and exposure. Those are the biggies. The next type of issue is chemicals. We have lots of chemicals in healthcare. We have chemical drugs, we have chemical liquids, we have cleaning products. Number one, don't mix any products that are not to be mixed. Number two, follow all of the rules and recommendations. Number three, don't put a chemical into another bottle and relabel it. You have a half an inch of bleach, don't put it into something else and write bleach on it. Leave it in the original container. So no mixing, everything in the original container, stored in a low place so they're not falling off shelves, and knowing what chemicals you're dealing with. So there are sheets called Material Safety Data Sheets, MSDS. You might want to know that, Material Safety Data Sheet. And what Material Safety Data Sheets are sheets that are either on the computer or in books. And in the old days, they were notebooks, and you'd have 3 or 4 that were this big. And the notebooks would have every single chemical in that facility. And those chemicals include whiteout, any chemical. And if you change from this manufacturer to that manufacturer, you need to get a new material safety data sheet. Thankfully, they're online in most facilities. What does a material safety data sheet tell you? It tells you what the use of the chemical is, what the composition of that is. So what's in whiteout? What to do if whiteout gets splashed in your eye? What to do if it gets on your skin? No matter what the chemical is, it will tell you what to do. If you eat it, what you need to do. So these sheets are really important. You need to know how to locate them. You need to know what they contain. They're called MSDS sheets, which is Material Safety Data Sheets. And all facilities have them. Again, it's an OSHA regulation. OSHA, back to them, federal. Slips and falls are another important hazard in healthcare. We have very nice, shiny, slippery floors that when a liquid gets put on them, spilled on them, can't even see it sometimes. We have people that can't walk well. We have stretchers. We have equipment moving. Spills must be cleaned up when they occur. Patients fall, employees fall. So we want to make sure that handrails that are on the wall are clear. That means that there's not equipment in the way. So if somebody's walking down the hall using the handrail because they're not steady with walking, that they don't have to walk around a stretcher and not hold on. That spills get cleaned up. That if there is a hazard on the floor, that there's one of those little yellow signs until it is cleaned up. That if there's a cracked tile, that it's reported. Everything needs to be taken care of. Broken equipment needs to be reported and taken out of service immediately. Electrical hazards occur. That's, we have a lot of electrical equipment. Some of it is 220 volts. It's dangerous. Make sure your cords are intact. Sometimes a bed will roll over a electrical cord and it'll fray. Don't leave it that way. Get that equipment out of service ASAP. Next topic is internal and external disasters. An internal disaster is if something bad happens in our facility. Internal disaster could be an earthquake, a fire. If I have an earthquake and, I got injured employees, I have an internal disaster. Internal disasters can also be external, like in an earthquake. We have damage outside our facility, we have damage to our facility. This snowstorm is an internal and external disaster. Why? Because our employees are having a hard time getting to work. So we have employees that are working very long shifts because their coworkers live way out in Darrington and can't get in. We have employees that are late for work because they're doing their best to get there, but it's taken them, it took my husband 75 minutes to get to work the other day. And it's a 5-mile drive. But he couldn't go down this hill. He couldn't go up this hill. He had to come back the other way and then go this way. And travel was terrible. He left for work at 6:15. He usually leaves at 6:40. He starts at 7. He got to work at 7:35. So, people are doing the best that they can, but, how much earlier should he have left to drive 5 miles? He figured he would be there with plenty of time to spare, not ever thinking he would be late. So if we have big snowstorms, if we have weather emergencies, they can impact us internally and externally. Patients can't get to us. Surgeries need to be canceled. Employees can't get there. Patients that are in the hospital that are ready for discharge or transferred to another facility might not be able to get to those other facilities. A big earthquake would be an internal, external disaster because employees can't get to work. Maybe our building's damaged. Maybe we don't have enough staff to deal with it. It happened in the middle of the night, and there's so much damage around that people are walking to the hospital, but our employees can't get there. Maybe we have a water main break and we don't have running water. So that can be an internal and an external disaster. An external disaster could be something like a bad accident, like when the duck boat crashed into the bus. That was an external disaster because we had lots of patients in the Seattle area that needed treatment. It impacted the hospitals, but we had enough staff. We had supplies. We weren't running out of supplies because we could get whatever we needed because the roads were fine. So internal disasters can become external. External can become internal. So you need to read your chapter on safety because safety is so important in the hospital and in any kind of healthcare setting because we're responsible for other people that aren't able to walk, people who aren't able to take care of themselves in many situations, people that aren't able to rescue themselves, people that are confused. So keep reading, keep studying. If you have questions on these videos, please email me. I hope that they help you get caught up. I didn't want you just to have to read the book. I also will post online my notes that I use for this. Have a great day. Be safe. Take care of yourself and your families.